Wes, and we are back to 60p. Whew, I barely survived that 24p video before this one. If you missed it, also about lens filters, right here. All right, I've heard a lot of talk about the difficulty of removing lens filters. And yep, that can definitely be a thing. But I'm here to tell you 3 great tricks for getting them off. Generally speaking, the issue isn't the filter on the camera, but between 2 types of filters. So right here on this lens, I have 2 filters. Well, one is a step-up ring and one is a filter itself. The first and most important thing to learn here is that filters and filter rings are extremely flimsy. You can't tell, but every time you squeeze them, they deform pretty substantially. So just as soon as you squeeze a filter, you're losing it. You're losing the shape, you're losing the way that it unscrews. Number 1, easy way of getting this off, don't squeeze the filter itself, just squeeze one part of it. Just in that moment, let's do that again. This was stuck. I'm only grabbing these 2 edges so I'm not deforming anything. Came out easy as pie. I had that on so hard that while using 2 hands, I could not budge it. So that is the easiest trick. Don't grab the whole filter, just grab the edges right next to each other and it'll move much more easily. Another way of doing this, along the same lines, is to redistribute your force. Very carefully, place your fingers all around the filter so that the force is even all the way around. Personally, I don't find this as effective because it's really hard to get the right amount of force, but it is more effective than just grabbing it at 2 sides and accidentally squishing it and making it stuck. It's ridiculous what a big difference this makes. Easy peasy. Another trick, this is one that a lot of people swear by, is the rubber band. This one is much more effective, the more effective way of getting them off of a lens itself, because as you can see, just getting one filter layer, that's a bit tricky. But if we put it on the lens, we're trying to get the whole filter off of the lens, you put a rubber band around it so that you create more of a grip. Now, modern lens filters are better for this, such as like the Polar Pro and such. They have a nice knurled design, knurled meaning it's carved with a shape and texture. So now that this rubber band is on here, you have a lot more grip. And again, even with a filter directly on the lens, you can try to grab the corner. And when you're using the rubber band, again, try to distribute your force, try not to squish the lens, try to apply as little squishing pressure to the lens as possible, even when you're using the rubber band. An alternate way of doing this one is to get just something grippy, like this kitchen silicone, and just like opening a jar of pickles, that'll come off much more easily when you have something grippy. Now when you're using this though, it's a little harder to distribute your force evenly. Number 3, this one is not for the faint of heart. If you have a filter that you really love, that you cannot stand to sacrifice, it's time to use physics to get it free. You've tried the rubber band, you've tried everything. I've got some pliers here. Now, I do not recommend using pliers to try to pull them apart. That will deform them. That is not why I have pliers. I have pliers because I also have this, and I do not want to touch this ring. We're going to use another kind of physics. Now we're using heat and expansion. So we have 2 rings. When an object is heated, it expands. So you just have to think about which ring we're looking at here. We have an outer ring and an inner ring. So we want to take the outer ring, the ring that has been screwed into, and we want to heat that up a bit in order to expand it, make it larger, make it easier to get the other ring off. This can also be done by making one side colder. That's a bit more difficult, but something that you can do is get a cold object, something that's been frozen in the freezer, and just apply cold to the inner ring and that might shrink it. But hey, let's do the most dangerous option instead. So let's get this going. Before we go any further, I have to say, do not do this if A, you're not willing to follow appropriate safety, B, you're not 100% comfortable with this, C, you don't have gloves or something to protect you from heat. So I have a heat pad here, I'm not going to touch the rings. Okay, so let's do this. I've screwed this on as tightly as I can, and I can't get it off right now. All right, so I'm holding the ring with one plier. I've got this other plier ready to pull on it to get it out. It doesn't take a lot of heat. We don't need to melt this down. We just want to heat up the one side of it. And we want to do it evenly so it doesn't warp. There we go. This is, whew, that is a very hot ring, but it's also an incredibly loose ring now. It's almost impossible to tighten down on the ring below it because it technically no longer even fits on the ring below it because it is, ouch, it is now a larger ring. It's now loose. So there you have it. 3 ways of getting a lens filter unstuck, whether from a step-up ring or from a lens. Now this last one, the heating up one, you cannot use that when it's a filter that's stuck directly to a lens. You have to use the cooling method. Cool the filter because it's the inner diameter that you're working with in that case. Let me know if you have any other tricks for getting a lens filter unstuck. As far as I'm concerned, those are the only tricks you need, but hey, there might be something that I missed. So let me know down in the comments below. I'm always hanging out down there. But until next time, go take some photos.